Good morning, students. Welcome to online lecture series of distributed computing system. Last lecture, we have studied the characteristics of distributed system and architecture models. So we continue with this characteristic of distributed system. So next character is a scalable, or why this distributed system is scalable, or we can say how we achieve this scalability, right? So basically, scalable, the meaning of scalability is accessibility, right? So scale has generally three components: the number of user and other entities are part of the system, and the distance between the fastest node in the system, and the number of organization that exerts the administrative control over the pieces of the system. So this scalability has three techniques to achieve the scale in distributed system. First one is the replication, second is distribution, and third one is the caching. So we will see one by one. So what is this replication? So replication creates the number of duplications or copies of the resources. It's use the naming, authentication, and file services to reduce the load on the individual server and improve the consistency, or you can say dependability and handiness of the services. The next, placement of replicas and the mechanism. So the two important issue of the replications are placement of replicas and mechanism by which they are kept the consistent. The placement of replicas depend on the purpose of replicating resources, or you can say the placement of replicas in a distributed system depends on the purpose of replicating the resources. If we can say, if the majority of the users are local, and if the services is being replicated to improve its availability or to spread the load across the multiple servers, then replicas may be positioned near one another. If change is made to the object, the change should be clear to everyone in the system. If inconsistent updates are received by the different replicas in the different orders, the timestamp are used to differentiate these different copies. The next is a distribution. So a distribution is used for managing the scale in distributed system, allows the information maintained by the distributed services to be extended across the several servers. Distributing data across the multiple servers minimizes the size of the database that must be maintained by each server. Distribution also spread the load across the servers. So why? To reducing the number of requests that are handled by each. If requests can be distributed to the servers in proportion to their power, the load on the server can be effectively managed. The third is a caching. So caching is another technique to build the scalable system. So caching minimizes the load on the server and load on the network automatically. So when minimizes the load on server, then load on the network is automatically minimizes. So cache data can be accessed faster if new request is made. The main difference between replication and caching is that cache data is the short-term data. Generally or typically, this caching is performed by the client, decreasing the frequent request to the network services. Caching can also occurs on the servers executing those services. So next is advantages of the distributed system. So what are the different advantages of this distributed system? So first advantage is performance. distribution, reliability, incremental growth, sharing of data, and communication. These are 6 different advantages of distributed system. So what is this performance? Performance means what? Generally, often a collection of processors can provide a higher performance than the centralized computer. Then distribution, many application involves by their nature, specially separate the machines, right? You can say banking, commercial, automotive system. So it's a distribution. So reliability and reliability, or you can say this is a fault tolerance. If some of the machines crash, then system can survive, because this distributed system is not a centralized system. If central machine is failed, then automatically all machines can't survive. So here, if any one machine is failed, then remaining machines can work properly in distributed systems. So incremental growth, as the requirement on processing power grow, new machines can be added incrementally. So as per our requirement, we can add the number of machines as per our requirement. Then sharing of data, or you can say resources. So shared data is essential to many applications. Computer supported cooperative work, reservation, and other resources can be shared. The last, that is communication. Last advantage is communication. So we can say this facilitates the human to human communication. Is communication. So what are the advantages? If there are advantages of this distributed system, then there are some disadvantages in a distributed system also. So what are these disadvantages? First one is networking problem. Next, security problem, computing power. And fourth one is difficulties of developing distributed software. So networking problem is what? Several problems are created by the network infrastructure, which have to deal with loss of messages and overload. Then security problem. Security problem is what? Sharing generates the problem of data security. Means here we are generally share the data or different resources. So at that time, just create the problem of data security. In computing power, the computing power per node is limited. Next, difficulties of developing a distributed software. So you can say, how should your operating system, programming language, and application look like? Is the important thing which should be defined and designed well in advance. So sometimes it may be difficult to predefine or assume the purpose of modules in the process of developing the distributed software. The next